we're going to go through what shape layers are in After Effects. So shape layers are basically very simple shapes that you can create here. So you can come and find them by, if you hold left click at the top here, they have a few different options for the very basic shapes. So let's just create a rectangle. Now, the first one I've created here, you can see it's just the outline of a rectangle. So shape layers have a few different properties. So they've got a stroke, which you can adjust at the top here, and if you can also adjust in the rectangle contents in the shape layer options down here. So again, we've got the stroke width, so you can change the width of that to whatever you like. And all these things have things like opacity, so you can have it slightly more. Change the colour, which is a nice, useful option. We've got the way you can see it, so you can add dashes to it. You can also add different caps, so you can make them rounder, the edges. Actually, it doesn't really matter at the minute because that only works when you've got dashes, so you can have rounder dashes on the edges there. You can have more dashes, less dashes, and so on. You can get rid of that by just clicking the minus. And we can also open up the fill as well. So I've got a fill here, and at the minute we can just pick the same, maybe slightly different fill. And at the minute, I believe it is you can change the fill here. So turn the fill on to a green colour. Now you can see the green's changed, and then we can now change the colour to something more like this. And the other thing we have is a path. So the rectangle path. So this is where you can animate the scale and position on the screen, and also the roundness, so you can blend between that and a sphere, or a circle, sorry. Other than this, if we open up, so I've just deleted the shape there. If we come and add a star, and we can also create our own custom shapes. So if you want to trace around anything or make your own shapes using the pen tool, so you can create anything really you want. So I'm going to take a look at the stars to demonstrate a few other little things. I'm just going to centralize this in the center here. So if you don't have the align option in the bottom corner here, you just come to Window Align, and you can just align it from middle and horizontally, vertically and horizontally. So again, this works exactly the same way. You can change the fill colours and all sorts. And as well as this, they've got an option in the contents here to add properties to this and add some attributes. So let's take a look at what we've got here. So we've got all sorts of little things we can add. So let's just show you possibly the twist. Let's go for the twist. You see that it started to slightly change there, and what that does, it brings up a twist option here, which brings a load more different attributes here that we can all keyframe with these stopwatches. So let's just bring up the angle there, and you can create this kind of crazy swirly twisty thing here. So let's just demonstrate you can actually keyframe that. Just play that back. Just let it run preview a bit there. So all these different things are keyframeable, even the stroke colour and opacity and stuff like that. You can all keyframe that on and off, whatever you kind of need. And let's just make sure that's on. You can go backwards, the minus as well. So let's have a look. I've taken the keyframe off there, so let's just Yeah, so you can play around with all sorts of these little things. But what you can do is you can, so for example, keep that on. You can add more stuff onto this to make it even crazier. So let's have a look. Another example before I do that is I can go back to the polystar and add more points or less points. So I can change these things kind of, so it's like a non-destructive process. So it's all based in this hierarchy here, like in a procedural way. So I can come in and change anything. So I can change the position of my original star. I can change the outer radius and things like that, or less. So I can get funky little shapes there. I can come into inner radius, so I can change all sorts of little things here before I actually do anything else. Twist, you can kind of, it's worth just experimenting with all sorts of little things here, get something different effects. I can add more stuff, so let's add a zigzag onto this. Now this zigzags my outline here, so it all depends on where you actually have it as well. So I can bring this below the stroke and I might get a different effect. So let's just up the size of this. Down the segment, so now I get this crazy kind of spiky effect. But what if I wanted to just bring the zigzag before I started messing around with the twist, for example? See, that kind of overrides it now. So I can just undo that there. Changing the size of the zigzag. And so on. So you just get different effects. I can just pull out the twist. So it all depends what order you do it in as well. So zigzag isn't really working for me, so I can just try something a bit different. Let's try a wiggle. See what the wiggle does. Some of these things might not have any effect, but it's just worth having a play around with. So obviously the wiggle's not doing much there, is it? There's no crazy star what we start with now. I'm just going to bring this up to half to speed it up. And let's just, for example, keyframe the wiggle. It's all about just playing around with the parameters, seeing if they make any difference. Doesn't look like it's doing much, that one. So that's maybe to do with a different attribute. So let's have a look at what else we can play with. Now we can repeat it. I'm going to talk about in more detail the repeater. This allows you to make some kind of crazy patterns. And the repeater has kind of all sorts of like rotation things you can do, so on. So you get all sorts of kind of effects, and it's all keyframeable again. So for example, maybe like keyframe the copies to 0, then all of a sudden you've got like a 40 of them to create this kind of little crazy spiral effect. And so on. So yeah, I'd have a play around with all these different options. Just some of the stuff like pucker and blow, I'm not too sure what they do, so just kind of have a play around, try different shapes and effects and see what you get, different points. And yeah, have fun with it.